Hi, I'm Lila Allen. I'm a writer, strategist, and editor, and I'm here today at KPF's headquarters in New York. It's the beginning of 2026, which marks this firm's 50th anniversary. And across those 50 years, there have been a number of landmark projects and Titan talents that have come through the doors. Among that portfolio of work is an impressive range of hospitality projects across the world. And I am gathered with three principals from within the firm who have led many of those projects to talk through how travel, how hospitality have changed over those 50 years. We have Josh Chaiken, we have Rebecca Gromet, and we have Ko Makabe. Welcome. So I'd love to start with just an icebreaker for us. What is your most memorable moment in hospitality, personally or professionally?
I've been practicing about hospitality nearly 30 years. And one time is definitely there was a Hyatt International president, the name is Bad Conrigan, we call BC. And we are designing a hotel for a Hyatt hotel in Toulouse, France. And that time we went together in a black car, and he looked at me, "Oh, what are you wearing?" I said, "Well, I try to be proper, like suits and ties. You looks like business person. take tie off, button down, more casual, try to be like more design architect." So that was maybe one of the lessons he told me. Dealing with hospitality, don't be like a businessman, like a designer.
A different world.
So that was one moment, I think, for sure.
Absolutely. Rebecca, what about you?
Mine is a little bit more silly. It was the first time, it was not my first experience at the hotel, but working on one, how we had so many bars within one hotel, and I couldn't believe it. And that was like my first awakening that there's so much more than just coming to stay. There's like stay overnight, that there's a lot more activity going on and a wider range of guests that stay at the hotel. So just that pure volume was what surprised me.
And Josh, what about you?
I'll actually circle back to the person that Ko mentioned, BC Byrne, and on the first project that we worked on with him, and Ko worked on that project as well in Grand Hyatt Tokyo, and they were sort of almost reinventing the urban mixed-use project, and the hotel within that project played a really important role. It was beyond what our expectations were for what the hotel could be. And I remember one meeting with him where we had kind of settled on the overall design for the hotel, and it was time to start doing the fun stuff. And he said, "Today we're going to start talking about food and beverage." And I thought, oh, this is great, because two of my favorite things, food and beverage and architecture. And then he said, "And we're going to put a cafe right next to the drop-off." And I just thought, who does that? I mean, at that point, it seemed like such an alien idea. Like why would you put a cafe, a restaurant next to a drop-off? But they were really thinking about how to activate the public realm with a hotel. And it turned out to be a fantastic restaurant cafe. It sort of elevated the hotel in a way that we hadn't thought about.
And I think that actually takes us nicely into our next question, which is really who is a luxury hotel for at this moment in time, and how has that evolved over the course of your career, over the course of KPF's history? Josh, I would direct that question back to you.
Well, there's a range of luxury hotel types, I would say, and it's a business traveler who can afford a higher end hotel. And sometimes it's both business travels as well as vacationers, but they aren't resort hotels. So it's urban resort / business.
And I would also just kind of crack open that question a little and also say, what is it for in 2026?
Building on what Josh said, what I find is when you can do both at the same time, so that you're not just going there for business, so you get the full experience from wellness, relaxation, and that way if you're traveling for business, you could bring your family, so that you could do both at the same time. And so the experience is very pleasurable. And then that way you can do your work anywhere, really, too.
Are we embracing the term bleisure? Business and leisure. It's a kind of buzzword that's been thrown around, I think at least since COVID, of this kind of hybrid travel that is really having a moment right now.
Yes, it is having a moment. I mean, our current projects that we're working on blend all of that wherever it is. I think that's key in a luxury hotel, that you have to have that full wellness component.
Yeah. And how does that take shape kind of outside of just amenities?
To be clear, bed seat is really important for me actually, and the pillowcase.
Oh,
And
yes.
that's become luxury. In terms of material, even like glass of cup, people really care. So all the interior material is really quite important component. That's actually how we learned from interior designers. We collaborate really world famous interior designers like Tony Chi to Yabu Pushenberg to Adam Tahani. Those are like some people we work together, and they actually teach us many ways actually what is a luxury is about.
Right.
Quite often it does feel like we're just creating the backdrop for the interior designer's work or for the experience. So if we do a good job, then what we do complements what they do, or it sort of sets the vibe, it sets the tone. The collaboration between us and the interior designer is really important, and the interface between us is really important. So that level of detail and that sort of consideration that Ko is mentioning is something that we think about, but in a different way than the interior designers think about. So we really learn from them, and and also even the way they present, I think, is quite different.
Fascinating, actually.
It really is, and so we learn from that too, because they are, I think, perhaps pay a little more attention to storytelling than we do. They might begin a presentation, a project, by saying, "Who are the customers?" This is your question. Who are they? And they'll define. They'll say these are the people. They'll have pictures, and they'll say, and this is what they're looking for, and we'll say, oh, that's really cool, and then it might even impact what we do. We might go back and say, okay, this is who the audience is. I mean, the audience is also, in our case, very much the city as well, because we are designing in the public realm, so we have to also navigate that interface between the sort of what the private realm of the hotel is, or the more private realm, and then how our buildings might interface with the city.
And I definitely want to circle back to that point, because I know that's a big topic for this firm, and Josh, something I know you're very passionate about. But first, I would love to just take a look back for a moment and direct a question to you, Ko. Sure. Asia has been a sort of testing ground for urban luxury hospitality. There have been some really important KPF projects that have opened there over the years and really driven change in the industry. Sure. So I'm curious, what has driven that change? Was it developers, the cities themselves, the brands leading these projects? What's kind of set the stage for that, and what has unfolded there?
I think mindset point of view, I think Asian culture has a historically more hospitality oriented, I think, and then the hospitality brand like Mandarin Oriental. For example, they are heavily talking about spa, wellness. You want to get the pampered, like nicely treated. Make sure you have a time at least 3 hours to get the whole experience. That was before I started designing for Mandarin Oriental.
Right.
So that was great introduction anyway. And people travel around the world, and the Asian culture of like those hospitality or like a spa treatment, that's become like almost necessary for many places. Even like Hyatt group, like we talk about the BC, Hyatt domestic versus Hyatt international that time back in the 90s to early 2000 was completely different. You go to like Asian Hyatt or like European Hyatt, they are very hospitality oriented, and even food and beverage as well. Versus for domestic in the US was far behind that time. I think they try to catch up now, but and then I think as a branding, I think for sure for Asian culture point of view, the food as well. I think the diversity of food, I think.
So some great offerings there, and I know bathing culture and wellness culture has taken off and is made its way here finally in the U.S.
I mean,
and I feel like
even like hot spring, right?
Yes.
I'm from Japan, so
Right.
hot spring is very natural since I was born. And like a bathtub experience, for example, maybe that's transformed to more towards the late 90s. Bathtub used to be more towards inside, but more to nowadays, like they want to put in the perimeter by the windows.
Right.
So you soak in the bathtub, you can see outside. And that was started more Asian project first, but I think now it's like anywhere we design, if it's a modulation, in a way, the more luxury you go to, bathroom wants to be tendency to be by the windows, so people can enjoy.
do hotels matter to the success of downtowns? And if so, why and kind of how do they relate to them?
The cities are transforming, right?
Right.
It used to be the central business district, but it's totally transforming into a central social district that brings everything together. And hotels are really the anchor of that because it's connecting all those different uses. And it's not just like you're going there to do work or you're just going there, to sleep. It's like a mixing of all of them. It builds community. So it's very, like a lot of our work, it's very important to, not just visually be contextual, but really anchor ourselves in the network. And I think hotels, as Josh was saying, that's why they get the prime spot, because they really are that anchor for that social district and bringing everyone together.
That's for sure, because office you don't do 24/7, right? But hotel is a 24/7.
Right.
Or is the people living here, the neighborhood people use bars in the weekend sometimes. After work, people go over there too. Yet there is a tourism coming into the cities. So that's really such an important component.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it keeps the city alive, not just during working hours, but all hours of the day.
All the times.
Right.
Right.
And the program is so diverse in a hotel. Like you could go there at 2 p.m. to like take a call, have a tea or have a drink or have a light snack because you didn't have lunch. And you're just, a visitor for 2 hours, or you could be there, you're staying there on vacation, you're staying there for work, you could be coming for an event, you could just be coming with your family for dinner in the evening. But it just, all times a day, it's active. But there's so many different ways to engage with the hotel offering, and that's why it's been such an anchor to, these central social districts and transforming downtowns.
And do you feel like the lobbies of hotels are still operating at all like kind of public living rooms and places for the public to gather, or is that kind of changing as maybe people seek more privacy or other trends?
Depends on the branding.
It depends on the brand.
Yeah, some brands definitely want to have exclusiveness. Doesn't want to be just all the public to come in.
Right.
I'm not going to say which one, but the other one is definitely try to open up the lounge space. People can get gathered, have a high tea cafe.
It's very conscious on their part as well. Like for instance, one brand that we've done some work for, the Aman, and quite
Super
exclusive.
high-end.
I mean, anybody can go up there, but it's still designed to feel more exclusive. And Aman has another brand now that they've rolled out recently, which is casual and at the same level of luxury. And their objective is to kind of deliver that same luxury, but to also make it more open, more accessible, more public. So you're still going to pay $20 for an espresso, if you go there, but you'll be in a lobby lounge that feels like it's more open to the public.
And in some of these hotels that are in these high rises, the Park Hyatt Shanghai, how does height change how a hotel feels? And how do you think about it in terms of the urban fabric?
Arrival experience change. So that we always care about how people arrive to the ground level, but then take shuttle elevator, and then you have to have some kind of moment, wow view. And like Park Hyatt Shanghai wise, once you go up to 87, you come out, you see you're above cloud. That's really wow experience. And the reception desk, through reception desk, you can see the sky. Not skylines, even sky.
Right.
Because there's nothing, well, now there's one building in front of us, but back in the time there was nothing.
Right.
And I think that experience is so different from super tall building experience versus for like regular standalone hotels.
And in a completely, opposite side of this, thinking about resorts, places that are more kind of far flung. How is designing a resort is it more like designing a small city than maybe the hotel we were just discussing? And how do the two kind of differ from one another?
I find that there are just a lot more spaces within it that are more common and public, so that you have just many more moments. There's a lot more inside-outside with any kind of resort. So there are a lot of different kind of terraces that are tied to it. it's maybe a slight tune-up of what you would do in a city where things are sort of bumped up more. But I find the urban hotels are having as much of the same offering. It's just maybe not the same scale.
Right.
And so I think a lot of successful even urban hotels, you would never have to leave if you didn't want to, because it is all there. And so the resort is actually connecting you with something that that you're going to go to. That's why you're there, unless it's purely focused on, is it like a wellness resort and they want to keep you in. So I find with the resorts that we're doing, it's more connecting to the outdoors than what I find in the urban one is really the bigger difference, and the scale is just a lot more.
In a way, your descriptor of the resort possibly being like a city within a city, you could say, it depends how removed it is and then how self-sufficient it is. None of us worked on the Atlantis, although we all know it well, and it's a very cool project. But one thing that you notice about it is that even though it is this very cool monumental building, it has all of these cutouts that are creating spaces. To some extent, you could say the scale of those spaces it's like you're creating courtyards, taking that urban experience and channeling it through the kind of a hospitality filter.
Well, you do work across so many different cultures, countries, and contexts. So how do you translate local materials and vernacular into something that also feels contemporary, fresh, and really luxurious?
Yeah, so I don't think it's just only hotel. I think we, as an architect, we always try to design something specific for local culture. We want to incorporate for urban fabric in a way and make it better. So if I were designing anywhere, actually, it could be China, could be Europe, England, London, for example, to India. Sometimes I do around in the context point of view, and then what is a local material is, and then looking at the back in the culture, and what is probably appropriate, because that's something we can control as a designing buildings. And maybe even sometimes transform design building too, right? The vocabulary, like Josh did for Sintenti building, that vocabulary looks like very Shanghai-like or China-like. You don't put that building in New York, for example. That will be odd, actually.
It was drawing from the neighborhood in that case. So that's I think what we typically like to do is establish a character that feels like it belongs. In it somehow draws from the context, and usually the operators who we're working with, they really want that. They want a hotel that doesn't feel like you could put it anywhere. It feels very much a part of its
They have their own identity, of course, like a Rosewood Hotel. You come in, you see it Rosewood Hotel in a certain way, but then they really changing for London context Rosewood versus for Hong Kong Rosewood versus for New York Rosewood. There is a different character. But once you go in, definitely feel like this is a Rosewood. It doesn't look like for Amman, for example.
Well, that's a very good point, actually, that you are working with brands that have different identities, you're working in these different contexts, but is there a kind of shared grammar between them that is distinct to KPF?
That's a good question.
I think each brand takes it differently. I mean, some have some similarities, but some brands, they have such strict standards that they want you, wherever you go, you have that same high expectation that they set everywhere. Whereas others, they want to be very contextual. They want to respond, and not just like the look and feel of it, but be unique wherever it is. And so what brings the brand together is its level of service.
But it is a nice subtle cue to kind of, if you are a global traveler, there's something that's kind of like home about each one that feels familiar, even if you're in a totally different place. I would just love to ask too, what is the hardest space to get right in a hotel? Because, I mean, first of all, I'd like to point out these are places to stay on a temporary basis, of course. There are these long-term residents as well, but there are also people working there. So you have back of house to consider as the architects. So is it the lobby, the room, the restaurant, or is it back of house and actually making these hotels function?
I think guest room is the most important factor, actually, just because, as you said, like people sometimes work, people sleep, sometimes people eat there too, and some people have a meeting as well. And function of like a ballroom, for example, ballroom is a ballroom. There's a certain proportion you can design, you need a certain height. I don't think that's difficulty as long as we can give them shell. Guest room is completely different because you want to be differentiated. We can create anything we want, but we want to make sure it's a hotel. So certain modulation is always repeating. So you don't have to design everything is completely different, custom made.
I think the hotel room is the most critical. I think the back of house is very challenging in different ways. Like the back of house has to functionally work, right? And everything that comes in and out of the hotel on a back of house scale, like by the loading dock, like that's very complicated and hard to do. But it's not it's not the guest experience. But the module, the guest room, is like the most fundamental to get right in the hotel.
I kind of agree with that. I agree that it's definitely the most fundamental and challenging, and I would say that at least, if not more than half of that challenge is carried by the interior designer. Most hotels, all that we've worked on go through where they want to have a guest room mock-up, and we're very much involved in that as well, because there's a lot of coordination, though it's really, I would say the interior designer is doing heavy lifting on that, in all fairness. Even though we can master plan it, we could say, you could put the bathroom here, that, ultimately, I want to suggest that the drop-off is, it's the arrival experience.
Right.
And there's a lot of complexity that goes into that. More often than not, there's not enough room for the drop-offs if it's an urban project. There's a lot of planning and logistics, but it's also very much the place where we are establishing the vibe, the identity of the hotel.
There's that old theater saying the show starts at the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Yeah. The arrival is an important experience, and as you point out, that's a kind of nexus of urbanism, the architecture, all these logistics, so that makes sense. I do want to ask about branded residences, which is something we're seeing more and more of. I feel like I'm hearing about a new one every week at this point. What has driven the recent growth of that? And I know this is something, I'm looking at you, Rebecca, because I know this is something you've worked closely on. But how does it change, if at all, how you approach the design of a hospitality project? And can you tell me about your experience in that world?
So there's a lot even in that, but as I was mentioning before, I think it's the level of service that you get with the residences, making that so prevalent right now, because you get your home and you get the service of the hotel. I think where it influences the hotel design is, we talked that you have the guest experience and then there's, the back of house, but now you have two sort of front of house flows. So it just informs, where you still want to keep that privacy, because when it's your home, you don't want it open to the public in any way, even if it's a paying guest of the hotel. So I think it's a lot of the functional planning, because the branded residences work with having the connection to the amenities. So they get to use those amenities, and they want, or most often, they'll want that access in a more exclusive way, not to go down where the public has to go down, so as if it's there. So you have like the public flows, you have the hotel guest flows, and you have the residential flows.
Well, it's interesting because, these are led by luxury brands, a lot of times that are very trusted as hospitality brands, and to an extent, kind of like what they're dealing with, it seems like, is trust, right, in their hospitality customers that have come to know and appreciate those brands and trust them to deliver a residential experience. Has that kind of been your experience, and does that trust sort of inform how you approach the design?
I haven't thought of it that way, but I think, but also with brands, they're loyalists.
Right.
And that's why the brand identity is so important in the hotel designs we do. I think, with that combination, it's actually more informed the residential side of it than the hotel. But I don't know if you've seen it differently. I think besides the flows, I think it's really transformed more of the residential side of things.
Because we have done quite few branded hotel residences, actually. Start from probably Mandarin is the first one I think we did. I think Rosette was another one too. I think they have branded residential as well too. Amman they do too, right? I think.
Yeah.
It's not every luxury hotel has branded residential, and I think that like your point of like access to the amenities and the restaurants, that's definitely the plus for the residential, I think. And then another one is sometimes they sell it. So from developer point of view, having for those branding residential, bring cash flow to the project is actually benefit, not only just making for hotels.
Absolutely. I think that's kind of important for them. And to the extent, I mean, you can almost see the math in the way the buildings are designed, the way they're stacked, is that residences are almost always on the upper levels, where they're going to command the higher prices. So, you'll have the hotel guest rooms here. Then there'll be, usually between the hotel guest rooms, there'll be an amenity floor, which is sort of the transition before you then, in the tower, will go up to the residences.
we don't really do standalone hotels. Like it needs
Right.
something else. And so it, you know, with residential, it's a great complement. And it keeps the economics, you know, working.
Right. Well, I know all three of you have projects in the pipeline, and I would just love to hear about one that you're excited about that you're working on now that's maybe coming up in the next year or so.
One that's very much, I guess, in the weeds, you could say, or like in, you know, in production, in the ground, is a ski resort in Utah. It's part of a ski village, you know, so it stands on its own to some extent, but it also very much engages with the rest of the ski village. And the terrain itself it's in a very beautiful location. So that's a fun and exciting, different sort of opportunity for us.
We are doing a wellness hotel in Las Vegas,
Oh.
which is quite exciting actually. It's completely different mindset in a way.
Right.
It's
Absolutely.
It's a hospital is very close by, close the highway actually. So all the amenity we have within the hotel is completely different.
Well, I just want to end on a fun question, which is, which hotel that you've worked on would you most like to get a drink in?
Excellent question. Yeah, it's like we have to pick one.
Can I pick two actually?
Yes, you can pick two.
So definitely Grand Hyatt Tokyo, because that's I probably spent more time. But also we are helping for renovating for Anders New York. It's close from our street, and that definitely is one of go-to place for me actually.
Yeah, you'll actually get to do that one pretty much. Rebecca, what about you?
The landmark Mandarin in Beijing, it's on Wangfujing, faces the Forbidden City. It just, being with history, I feel like you get a great view, a great experience, and I feel very connected to history there. So
I've never actually been to the Atlantis. I think it would be fun to have a drink there. I would like that. Yeah, we should. Yeah, yeah.
see if what you're thinking is.
Yeah, confirm. Yeah, I'd like to
Perfect.
confirm that's.
Your choice.
50th anniversary KPF trip.
Yeah.
Well, thanks to all three of you for being here. Cheers to 50 years. And thanks for talking with me today about this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah.